Hi, Steve. As pleased as people are about your plans for electoral reform, you know better than most that it'll take even greater changes to fix all that ails the Canadian political system. You've long advocated Senate reform, scorning others for appointing unelected senators. Now, by appointing 40 or so unelected senators yourself, you control the Senate and can make these changes happen. But that's just a start. Again, I have to turn to your 96 essay with Tom Flanagan, Our Benign Dictatorship, because you sum up our problems so well there. Although we like to think of ourselves as living in a mature democracy, we live instead in something little better than a benign dictatorship. Our parliamentary government creates a concentrated power structure out of step with other aspects of society. For Canadian democracy to mature, Canadian citizens must face these facts as citizens in other countries have, and update our political structures to reflect the diverse political aspirations of our diverse communities. You warned that a governing party without effective competition can drift into cronyism, corruption, and cynicism, that over time its supporters and their interests become too closely interwoven with the state. But for things to change, people must want change, and you've employed a daring strategy to win over those who blindly accepted the status quo. You've risked your integrity and the very future of our country to drive home the weaknesses of our system. It's been a busy 5 years. You showed the corruptibility of MPs by involving half of yours in an illegal election funding scam. You choked off the information that the responsible debate of issues requires by drowning out your opponents with relentless personal attack ads, by refusing to take questions from the press, by muzzling government bureaucrats and scientists, by undermining the access to information system, by attacking and defunding organizations that might speak critically of you, by intimidating your detractors with lawsuits, and by refusing to submit information to the other parties for their review, thus becoming the first Prime Minister in Commonwealth history to be found in contempt of Parliament. You quoted the Auditor General out of context so it looked like she supported your actions, and backed one of your ministers' altering of a report to make it look like it supported hers. You pushed the CRTC to allow false or misleading news on radio and TV, so that Sun Media could spread misinformation here like Fox News does in the States. You undermined fact-based policy making by cutting funding to vital research, suppressing study results, and ending the mandatory long-form census. You racked up the biggest debt in Canadian history and still push for tax cuts that favor the wealthy and large corporations. You passed unwanted bills by making them confidence motions or by attaching them to other wanted legislation so the opposition has no real way to challenge them. You gave your committee heads a 200-page booklet on how to derail multi-party parliamentary committees. You prorogued Parliament 3 times, shutting it down whenever you're badly cornered. You fully exploited a Prime Minister's power to make patronage appointments. You made Canada the despised outsider in global efforts to tackle climate change, and lost us our seat on the UN Security Council for the first time in its history. You replaced the Government of Canada on official documents with the Harper government, replaced photos of historic parliamentarians with photos of yourself, and made public presentations of government funds using checks with a big Conservative Party logo. You have now concentrated more power in the Prime Minister's office than in any other parliamentary democracy. There's more, but I'll stop. You can stop too. We get it. Our system is horrifyingly vulnerable to a devious, ruthless, power-hungry leader. You've given us a real Animal Farm nightmare. Parliamentary reform with ironclad checks and balances on the power of the Prime Minister's office is urgently needed. A real majority of Canadians will back it now. One last note, putting politics before principle is habit forming. You might not notice, so here are a couple of examples. appointing senators who've just lost elections. It's an insult to your ideal of an elected Senate and to the voters who rejected them. Cutting government funding to political parties so the parties with less wealthy supporters than yours are left struggling to raise money. It's undemocratic and just plain mean-spirited. To avoid more of these kinds of slip-ups, I recommend the following simple steps. Before you do something, remember back to when you were the no-nonsense policy guy who was making fun of future Prime Minister types. Then ask yourself, how would I feel if some other leader, say a Liberal, did the very same thing? Your reaction will help to guide you to what is truly right and honorable. Take care, Terry.